Now, this should be no surprise with all the talk we do about awareness of smoking. There are 47 million smokers in this country, many of whom are locked in a difficult struggle to kick the habit, or at least they're trying to kick it. But some smokers in America, you have to know this. There's going to be help on the way for you. We have Dr. Mehmet Oz. He's the author of You, the Owner's Manual. Simple title, but very sophisticated information in here. You've got some great tips for us about smoking. People think they know everything there is to know, but they take their life in their own hands. But what is the reality for smokers out there? Why is it so hard to quit?
Every time you take a puff of a cigarette, it's like taking a hit of heroin. You get 10 of them per cigarette, so it's incredibly addictive. Plus, and folks don't recognize this, whenever you take something in your hand and move it around, you reinforce the behavior. Cigarettes are the best example of that. In fact, it reminds you to smoke. When you tap on something, when you see something long and narrow that you want to put in your mouth, it reminds you that you need to smoke. And the data is pretty clear on this. If you try to stop smoking cold turkey, your success rate is 5%. 5%.
Really?
But if you get help, and that's what we're going to try to offer today, is a very clear game plan that we know works, your success rate's closer to 45 to 50%. That's a huge difference, and that's how we'll actually stop smoking in this country permanently. When you try to smash the ash, it doesn't work. What you have to do is say, listen, I care about you. In fact, I love you. Not you personally, but generically.
I got it. It worked for me for a second there, but thanks for smashing that ash.
But what I really want to have happen is for you to appreciate that that's why I'm talking to you about this stuff. And if you really love yourself, this should be second nature to you. The question then for us is, how do we get beyond the current failings? And one of the best ways is not to show ads about stopping smoking, because whenever you hear the word smoke, it turns the same part of your brain on that's turned on when you want to smoke. So quite paradoxically, we're reminding people to smoke. That's one of the reasons I personally think that there's no real lobby against some of the ads to stop smoking, because it reinforces the industry. But I have a different way.
You do. Now, I have to say something. This is a very special treat for everybody watching on ABC News Now here, Good Morning America Now. Very rarely, but it happens, you get an image like this is your brain on drugs, those eggs frying.
Yep.
When they show you what happens when you do methamphetamine and they show you the brain with the big pockets in it. There is an image every once in a while that can happen that will change the way you see something. For me, this is one of those images. That's why we have these gloves on today, not just fashion, like that tie. Let's see what you have here today that shows this is the reality of what happens when you smoke.
All right, so let's start off with what normal looks like. A normal lung has a texture that's fairly smooth. It's got a little bit of color to it. There's often some damage that occurs just from living in a city, which you can see on the outside.
The black is what, dead tissue? What is it?
The black is tar and other residue from pollution. When you smoke cigarettes, you get a lot of tar in your lungs, and so you'll sometimes get this from people around you smoking. Secondhand smoking causes this as well, but this is generally a normal-looking lung.
This is a human lung.
Human lung. These were taken from folks who passed on at New York Presbyterian Hospital, and we go to the autopsy labs, and we try to find out why these people die. And in the course of that, folks are willing to let us use their organs to teach as well. So this person was not a smoker. I know that from the history. Contrast that to this lung.
Jeez.
Now, you see how dark this is. It's got a lot more tar deposition. But, Chris, feel that. Feel these holes. And contrast it to this lung. This is more spongy. This is emphysema. These holes here represent the sort of moth-eaten appearance, because cigarette smoke enters into the little air sacs of the lung called the alveoli, and it destroys them. So you get these big patches that don't have any real role in helping you. And then, of course, there's one last thing that happens with cigarette smokers. This, by the way, happens, we estimate, in about 1/3 of patients who smoke, if they smoke long enough. This happens in less, but it's more dangerous. This is lung cancer. And if you just feel that, feel how hard it is.
Oh, it is very hard. And so the healthy tissue should be softer.
Exactly, and it invades the surrounding tissue. I show this to you because I found that if you really want to get someone to stop smoking, don't try to browbeat them. Just show them what the reality is.
This is what it is. This is going to happen inside your body.
Yeah, and when we start to do heart surgery and lung surgery and we see these, we stop smoking if we're smokers. Why? Because it doesn't take a lot to make the jump from this to your own body.
My father smoked for 30 years, cool cigarettes, 3 packs a day. I came in, I saw a commercial on TV when I was 7 years old about how the person dies and they showed the grave.
Right.
And I came up to him and I took the cigarette out and I said, Dad, you're going to die. You're going to leave us. He did that. They went and showed him the pictures of what could happen with lungs. Because, you know, 7 years old is 30 years ago. So we're talking, what, you know, like 1977.
Yeah.
Wasn't that advanced with this. The pictures of what could happen, the idea of what he was doing to his family, he quit.
Yeah. Well, people will quit for reasons of love. That's an example. You know, he cared the world about you. It hurt him to think that he might be hurting you by leaving you. prematurely. That gets people to quit smoking.
This would do it for me. This is terrible. Yeah. What are some real-world tips? You're out there, you've seen this. You're like, I'm disgusted by that. That can be in me. I'm scared. What do I do?
4 steps. Pretty simple, vetted, well worked out. Step number 1, you actually got to figure out what kind of a smoker you are. And the best way to do that is to figure out if it's a chemical addiction you have or is it an emotional addiction you have. Chemical addictions will manifest themselves by reminding you that you're not getting your nicotine hit, which is like heroin, as we mentioned. So how do we know that? How soon after you wake up do you smoke your first cigarette? Right? You actually leave important meetings to go get a cigarette. Those are chemical addictions. Social addictions are turned on by your friends having a cigarette, a stressful environment making you remember that you haven't smoked in a while. Those are the kinds of things that we use to differentiate you. Then step 2 is we've got to actually get you to make a plan. People don't plan to fail, but they fail to plan. And so the plan you need is a very simple one. First, you want to understand what are the triggers. What are the pitfalls where you've just reached that wall and you have to have a cigarette? Is it friends? Is it work? You got to understand that. Number 2 is you got to start to control the addiction. You don't have to stop it. But if you smoke 18 cigarettes a day and you're awake for 18 hours a day, that's 1 cigarette an hour. That's all you get is 1 an hour. And if you happen to miss an hour, you don't get 2 the next hour. You're beginning to control your habit. And third, you got to start walking. Why walking? The leading reason young women don't stop smoking is they don't want to gain weight. Be honest with yourself if you're watching right now.
True. Everybody says that. They don't want to put on that weight. It's true.
So you got to start on a weight loss program before you stop smoking, or else you will gain weight. That's the data, by the way. They're right when they have that fear. So by walking, we replace a bad habit with a good habit. And the last thing you need to do in that section is you got to make an appointment with your doctor, because step 3 is to rely on medications. Now, there are tons of medications out there that you can use. Some of them block the effect of nicotine on your brain. Others stimulate the nicotine receptor so you don't need the cigarette anymore. You can go either path. They both work, but you got to do it. And the fourth, and I think the most important, is that you have to have a plan for failure. And here's why, Chris. The average person will fail 6 times in their effort to stop smoking before they succeed. So what are you going to do about that? You have to understand that when you fail, there are certain backup plans, but most importantly, you need assertiveness training. If your best friend likes to smoke and you don't, you're going to have to take care of that. If your spouse smokes and you want to stop, they have to stop too. You've got to be forceful in your life to get the things that you need. And again, do it out of love and compassion for the people around you, not because they're a lesser human being than you are.
Dr. Oz, thank you for the tips. Thank you for this visual demonstration. It doesn't get any more real than that. The book is called You, the Owner's Manual. There's tons of information in it that you can use. And if you're a smoker, we hope you're taking it seriously. You're watching Good Morning America now.